Who's ready to get tuned up?
So for our tune-up today, we have our parts and our tools that are here. We're only gonna be doing spark plugs as my spark plug wires didn't come in yet. So they were a little bit delayed. They were about 7 to 10 days out of my local Chevrolet dealership. So we were able to get the plugs in right here. We need a torque wrench so when we put these back in, and we need a regular ratchet, but right here is a special tool. Let me grab it. Is for the spark plugs. It has a rubber inside so it doesn't hurt. Let's see if you can see it. You see a little bit of that rubber that's in there, and that's so it doesn't hurt the porcelain of our spark plugs. We also need to find my spark plug gap tool so that we can make sure we put the right gap on these plugs. But first, what we need to do is pop this hood and start pulling some plugs. So as you can see, we're here at the engine, and the easiest way to find your spark plugs, if you've never done one of these before, is look for your wires. So this is on an older engine, so it does have plugs and wires, whereas some of these new contraption engines just have coil packs. So what we need to do is pop off these right here, the wire caps, which is pretty much just pull, and they pop right off like that. There is a special tool to do it, but it's not that important. So how we're gonna do it today is we're gonna remove one at a time and then replace it so that we can make sure we don't mess up our wires, because each wire goes to a specific plug. So let's go ahead and pop this plug out and get the new one in. All right, so as you can see, this is a pretty old looking plug. It looks corroded, no oil or anything on it, but this is really old. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and replace it, make sure our gap is set correctly, and go ahead and toss that new plug in. All right, so here is our brand new plug. Doesn't look much different. Same plug. This one matched the VIN number at Chevrolet. Our gap is good right out of the box. It's within the spec. So now we're gonna take our fancy spark plug socket and put it in. So now we're gonna put this in and torque it to spec. All right, so I went and hand tightened the spark plug in. It's the gap, it's perfect. So now we need to torque it down. So we got our torque wrench here from Tang Tools, and we have it set to the 20 foot-pounds of torque. If we could zoom in and look, there it is. And we're gonna go ahead and torque it down. So we come in here, let's see, just get it set, there we go. And we wait until we hear the click. Not yet. And there it is. So that one is torqued and into spec. So now what we're gonna do is go ahead and knock the rest of them out. So that back one on the back side of the engine was a little bit difficult just because there's so much stuff in the way to get your ratchet and your torque wrench down. But now we're gonna move over to the other side where it's again, just rinse and repeat. Pop the plug off, or the plug cap wire off, then pull out your plug, new plug in, torque, and back on with the wire. So let's go ahead and start with this first one. So that last spark plug is torqued to spec and it's ready to go. But we have one more thing to throw at this truck, and it is a set of new spark plug wires. So we're gonna go ahead, rip the old ones off, and we're gonna toss on these new ones. All right, that was a little bit more of a pain in the butt than I thought it was gonna be, as each wire gave me some trouble. They were a little bit different, but they are all off. As you can see, our wiring mess is now changed over to brand new AC Delco. These have been replaced at some point, as they are not original factory plug wires, so now they have original factory ones. Now what we're gonna do is put the air box back together. We're gonna push this thing outside, and we're gonna do an oil change. So like I said, we're gonna hop outside and do a quick oil change. As you can see, I'm a little dirty. We do have an oil leak on the top of one of our valve covers, which is causing me to be a little dirty. I cleaned it somewhat up. We may have to replace those soon. Not too terribly hard of a job, as at least the passenger side, it's a couple bolts and it's out. But what we're doing today is we are gonna change the oil. Make sure we have the right amount and make sure that it's clean, and kind of get a update on what it looks like inside. So we are gonna change our oil. We are gonna go synthetic, and we are gonna do Rotella. I have been a big supporter of Rotella. No, I am not sponsored by it in any means, but I have it running on my truck and my 2Zs. So why not put this truck on the same stuff? Because we trust it. So let's go ahead, get this thing in the air, and do an oil change. So we got the oil change knocked out. The air filter looked pretty good. No need to change it, as it was pretty clean. We did run into a little bit of an issue with the oil change. People need to wet down the O-ring when they put on the filter, because that thing was locked on. It doesn't look like it needed an oil change. The oil looked pretty good, not horrible. There was a little bit of metal on the magnet, not something I'm 200% worried about at this time.
So do you guys remember about 30 seconds ago when I said, oh, we're gonna be fine. We're not gonna have to rebuild this engine. I mean, we saw some bearing material, not that big a deal. Well, I was wrong. So I took this baby on a test drive, got a little on it, and now we have zero oil pressure and a knocking engine. Also notice that my transmission is slipping, so we're gonna have to build the transmission, and we're gonna have to rebuild this engine. So in the next video, we're gonna start ripping out this engine. We're gonna inspect the internals of this engine and see how bad the carnage really is. So I hope you guys stick around for that video, but probably next week we're gonna be hopping back over on the 63. But that's gonna be a wrap for today's video, so we'll see you guys next Saturday.